Hello, everybody. Welcome to yet another episode of Harsh. I am your host, Chris Myatt Jr. Today, I am joined by a new guest, Joanne West. Joanne, how are you doing?
I'm fine, thank you. Thank you for having me on.
Hey, it's a pleasure. As soon as I saw your post about being one of the first seven suffer or TMAU clinically diagnosed sufferers in the world, I was like, man, I gotta try to get her on. So I really appreciate it.
No, you're welcome.
All right. So the first question I'd like to ask you, and I normally ask everyone I've had on the show this, uh, what was your first initial reaction story as to what, like, even if you didn't think about it when it first happened, maybe looking back, you were like, that's probably when it started.
Well, I was about 5 or 6 and going to school. The children used to call me fish face or fishy, and I didn't understand it. I didn't get it because having had my diagnosis, actually, I can't detect the smell on myself, but other people can smell me. So when I got nicknamed and labelled with all these nasty names at school, my mum took me to a doctor to have a nail assessed, and she commented to the doctor that sometimes I have a fishy odour, which I was completely unaware of, to be honest. And because I was so young, I guess my mum didn't really discuss it with me. But they took it further, and I was assessed. I ended up having all sorts of, they took urine, they took bloods. I ended up spending a week in hospital, actually. And I can remember having to eat egg mayonnaise sandwiches for breakfast, lunch, and dinner. And then them giving me different types of foods, including mainly fish. I had to go off on exercise sessions. They were assessing my sweat levels, my temperatures. They were making me do exercise. It was all a bit strange. I didn't quite understand it because I was so young. However, I was diagnosed with TMAU, and it was really, my parents were then genetically tested, and it was unfortunate they both produced two genes that were faulty, and I have a missing enzyme in my liver, or that's what I've been told that TMAU is. And I took it from there, really. But I mean, I grew up not really placing too much emphasis on it because like I said, I didn't detect the smell on myself. But I did then have to change my diet, and I became very much aware of being around people when I knew that I'd eaten certain foods. And I did pick up on reactions from people, but I sort of began to understand it. But being so young, I guess it was, this is me, take me or leave me. I didn't have a problem with myself, and I didn't really, I don't know, pay too much attention to the people that were really negative to me. I thought it was their problem, not mine.
That's a great response, especially being so young. Um, so
Yeah.
so basically, a follow-up I was going to ask is, what was it like being one of the first seven people in the world to be clinically diagnosed with TMAU? How much did they even know back then?
Well, as I said, I spent a week in hospital, which I just thought was a good fun thing because I was in a children's ward with other kids. Didn't quite understand it. After, I can remember going in to a big hospital presentation area, and there must have been at least 200 doctors or nurses, clinicians sitting in the audience, and I was standing up on stage while these doctors were talking about me. I can't really remember what they were saying. It was all a bit nerve wracking, really. But then several months later, I can remember my mum, she treated me. We went for fish and chips in a fish and chip shop in London, and I was very excited. I just thought it was a nice treat. But lo and behold, the following day, I got taken up to a medical institution up in London. and I sat in a cubicle with hundreds of other people, and all these different doctors were coming in and out and smelling my hands, palms of my hands, and talking about me. And I got very angry and upset with my mum, because I then understood she wanted to sort of trigger this smell in me by treating me to fish and chips, which I was a bit upset with, and it took me a long time to forgive her. So I have those memories. I thought it was kind of cool, actually, to be labeled the seventh person in the world to actually have the official diagnosis. And actually, I'm hoping that, by talking to you now, the word gets spread, because obviously it's still very undercover. And even my doctors now, I moved away from London and my medical notes got mislaid. My new doctor had never heard of the condition, and he was asking me about it as opposed to trying to give me guidance on it. So
Yeah, that seems to be the misfortune of having stuff like this, or most malodorous cases in general. They're just not really known or talked about, so I can
no,
understand the frustrations at times, for sure. Um,
yes,
s-
definitely.
so I do have a question I'd like to ask. And I've asked everyone
Hmm.
this. In your humble opinion, while dealing with this condition, what has been the greatest blessing in disguise, and what has also been the harshest lesson you've learned while dealing with this?
Um, I think I can reverse that from the point of view. I mean, I've been quite strong from when I was young. I was very lucky that my parents, looking back on it, they actually introduced me to swimming lessons very early on in my childhood. And I think they did it on purpose to give me an activity that was physically active, where I could be disguised, really, if I was suffering from my odors. But in a swimming pool environment, people don't tend to pick up on the smell so much. I was happy, I was active, I was making friends. And then, to be honest, the blessing is I followed through with that. I became a lifeguard in my younger years. And I taught swimming for 35 years, and it sort of led on to a career for me, in a sense. But whether that was intentional or not, but I actually discovered the love of swimming because I think mum and dad tried to give me an activity where I could feel normal. So that's a big blessing. Um, I guess the negativities as a teenager, really. You take things to heart quite a lot. You take on board what people say to you. And as any teenager or young person, I found it hard when people were rude to me, or it's just their facial expressions, to be quite honest, because sometimes people don't say anything, they just look at you nastily. But I learned to sort of turn away and say, well, this is me. I've not done anything wrong. I have a medical condition which, yes, I can support and help to control myself with food, but it doesn't necessarily stop it. So I always been open with people and said I've had a condition called TMAU, and tried to educate people, give them a little bit of knowledge, in the hope that they have empathy for me as opposed to be critical of me. And if they've chosen to ignore that information, then I've chosen to actually say, well, this is me, a little bit like the Greatest Showman, take me or leave me, and I've walked away.
That Hey, I applaud you for that. That's pretty solid answer. Um, it I would definitely agree in terms of having stuff like this. It definitely refines your character because it's a little bit harder to blend in with the crowd. So you kind of have to just be you at the end of the day and figure out what's going to work for you in this lifetime. So,
You do,
uh,
you do, and we
yeah,
haven't done anything wrong. We've been born this way, and unfortunately, it is a medical condition. But just because it's not seen doesn't mean it doesn't affect us. And the only way that you can educate people is by talking to them, really, and letting
right.
them understand.
I agree for sure. Uh, So quick question. So here in the States, one thing that's kind of been a trending topic on the Meebo is there's that iGym team at Florida State University that's trying to create treatment for TMAU sufferers. Have you heard about this?
No, I haven't.
Yeah, so basically they've been doing interviews with TMAU sufferers on the TMAU Reddit thread. And so right now they're trying to get pharmaceuticals involved to create a form of treatment. So I'm assuming it would probably be like a pill. And and they're also trying to gain what you call it, social security for TMAU sufferers. So
Hmm.
I was just curious if you would have known about it, what you would have thought about it, or even if you're just now hearing about it, what do you think about it after all these years? Someone finally trying to advance that in some way.
Um, Obviously, it's very important because there's a lot of people out there who are really suffering, and apart from their bodies. I mean, I understand with us TMAU, apart from the smell, it doesn't affect our bodies in any further negative ways. But if people are not mentally happy to cope with it, it becomes a big stigma. Then it can cause a lot of issues for their life, and it affects their lives and their family and so on. So if there is a cure, um, then fabulous. I don't know about taking pills and whether that's ever going to be a cure, because as far as I'm aware, it's a missing enzyme in our liver which causes it. So
Right.
unless they can create that enzyme to be there again, I don't know. Personally, I do not want to take additional pills in my life. Um, it's I've mentally got to the point where like I said, I am who I am. um, and I think there is also a study in the UK that was released earlier this year, which I believe I sent through to you, and they were examining the mental health of people with TMAU to say that actually we need to put more support in for people to cope with this condition, until a cure is found. They're not dismissing that they're still going to research to see if a cure can be found. But in the meantime, they are suggesting that people should have further support and potentially be given a disability sort of label, from the point of view it will support them to move forward with their lives. So, yeah, personally, I do not want to take any more pills or tablets.
I don't blame you. I don't think most of us would, but
No.
yeah, I'm definitely on the same boat. I definitely feel that I'll be honest, so I'm in my early 20s,
Hmm.
and with other sufferers, I'll even humbly admit I don't think a cure is going to be available while I'm in my prime. It's like my
No.
20s, 30s, maybe even into my 40s. I don't think it'll be available because not enough people know about it.
No.
But I'm hoping, fingers crossed, that with through more awareness, there may be forms of treatment, or
Yeah.
maybe they can deepen their studies and grab like handfuls of us at a time and just see what creates worser reactions. Like for me personally, most of the sufferers I've spoken to, even with myself, anytime I'm under a high stress situation, the odor gets
Hmm.
drastically worse.
Yeah.
So yeah, but with me, it's been a bit of a different journey. Like, I've had surgeries because I was clinically diagnosed with bronchidrosis, and that's why one of my theories is I still deal with some issues even after post surgeries.
Mhm.
Is I wonder if TMAU, if bronchidrosis isn't a secondary symptom, and if it doesn't attack the epicnine glands in the body, and that's what produces the malodorous symptoms. So I think it would be more along the lines of potentially like autoimmune disease.
Yeah.
But again, until there's further testing, we're never gonna know. So
Yeah. I mean, I believe there's quite a few tests that have happened over the past 20, 30 years in the UK. I'm not quite sure. I think they're sort of trying to decide exactly what TMAU is and how it's caused. And as you said, if they can conclude what the actual diagnosis is, then they can look for a cure or tackle, how to support people with it. I mean, for me, just on a general daily basis, I mean, I always, for example, before I go out, I always chew gum. I brush my teeth, I chew gum. Going to pick my children up from school, I always have gum on me. For example, when I wash my hair, I always spray my hair with perfume before it dries because the perfume lasts longer. Fresh clothes. I do have treat nights where, I absolutely love fish, and fish is the worst thing that triggers me off. But I know on a Friday, if I've not got anything for the next 2 or 3 days, specific where I'm meeting people, non-family, I'll have fish because I love it. And but I think it's a lot about managing the condition and the expectations on ourselves, really. Um, there's been several medical programs here in the UK over the past 10 years where they've invited people onto the TV to explore and explain what TMAU is. So again, it's public awareness, and I think it's wonderful that people are talking about it within our community, but it needs to be widespread. And I don't know, it needs to be marketed, it needs to be publicised on TV programs, in the media, and not to negatively pull people out to make fun of them or anything. It's knowledge, isn't it? It's giving people education so that they can treat people with respect, and the respect that we deserve.
I agree. Couldn't have said it better myself. Um,
Mm.
one of the issues, especially right now, is so certain sufferers I've spoken with, we question the validity of the urine test. So when you have to have that added choline, uh, freeze the urine sample, ship it off to a lab.
Hmm.
Um, some question the validity of it, and one of the only other ways to get tested for it is through genetic-based testing. And uh, I'm just curious to know, the genetic-based testing, it's so expensive. Insurance doesn't want to cover this stuff. So even if we were to gain any sort of medical-based progress,
Hmm.
in your humble opinion, how do you think we're ever going to go about making this testing and I guess trying to combat these conditions more affordable?
It's very difficult, isn't it? I mean, it's here in the UK, we're very different in the way our medical systems work. So I do know for a fact that if we want to be tested, we have to be referred to a specialist here in the UK, and to get even a doctor's appointment at the moment is very difficult, um, and it takes a lot of time. I was tested nearly 50 years ago, so and I know that they put my parents through genetic testing to the fact that my dad was really sick with whatever they gave him. Um, so I don't think it's going to be. And also in the UK, you have to go to one particular hospital to be tested. There's only one hospital in the whole country that does it. So it is. I guess it's very difficult for people to be tested. Um, I don't know how it works in the States. I think you obviously have a lot of costs related to the medical side of things. But even if you suspect you have TMAU, if you can look at how people are managing it and what other people are doing to support themselves to sort of combat it, even in the meantime, if you can't be tested, then we need to get information out there how people can feel better about themselves without the testing.
Yeah, yeah. I agree with you wholeheartedly. Um, makes you feel any better here in the States, we only have one place as well that
Mhm.
does the testing. It's all the way out in Denver, so like the northwest part of the states. But that's interesting to know. What's the name of the hospital that you guys have in the UK that does it?
Well, it's a hospital up in Warwickshire. So, but also there's lots of London clinics that you can go to, but I believe that they send off the urine samples to be tested at this one hospital. But why, I do not know, because you would imagine that to test urine is quite a simple thing. But again, I guess because it's not so very widespread and it's not a problem that people are presenting with on a regular basis, but doctors aren't aware of it anyway. So that's what I said. It really needs to be highlighted in the media or sort of publications that are above and beyond just people talking. It needs to be picked up on a documentary. I don't know if there's a documentary in America that we could target and to highlight these things.
Well, uh, well, my surgeon, he's talked to me about doing like an interview type thing, but yeah, I wish there could be a documentary where they just take a handful of us and we
Mm-hmm.
just tell our stories, and hopefully it would pull at some heartstrings to be like, all right, you know what? Instead of ignoring this, why not we try to find different ways to combat it, even if they can't find a definite cure anytime soon,
Yeah,
just find ways to make it more widespread knowledge. So,
that's right. And I think because it's invisible, isn't it? People don't see you with a disability. They don't see a medical condition. They just assume that you haven't washed or you're wearing dirty clothes or, you know, you haven't been to the dentist or whatever. And it's humiliating and it's upsetting and it's hurtful. But for me, I've learned to sort of stand up and see beyond their ignorance. And it's like, well, this is me, you know, take me or leave me. If I do discuss TMAU, which I very rarely do these days because the people I surround myself with are fully aware of who I am and my symptoms. Um, but like I said, I do protect myself if I'm going into new scenarios, just making sure that I hopefully don't give off a negative smell or vibe and people sort of dismiss me straight away. Um, but I think it's people's confidence in standing up to life is more than your body odor. And I know that is very difficult for some people, but you've just got to get over that hurdle because life is for living. And at the end of the day, nobody's perfect. They really aren't. And I'd rather be a nice person and be out there doing a good job and trying to make a difference in this world and people look at me negatively sometimes than actually be hiding away knowing, you know, actually, you know, people are rude, people don't care, but don't allow these people to stop you living your lives.
hey, that's a great message. I really like that. Um,
Mm.
quick question. Uh, so did this, because certain sufferers, especially on the Meebo pages, they've expressed how the this condition has negatively impacted their relationship with loved ones or even coworkers, classmates, anything of that sort. How has this condition affected your relationships with others?
Um, like I said to begin with, when I was younger, I didn't understand people's negativity towards me because I didn't understand what I had. But when I learnt about my condition, it was very much a case of initially I sort of hid, I guess, and didn't want to talk to people about it. But as I began to grow and like myself and know that I was a nice person, a decent person, I found confidence to talk to people about it. And it's very much a case of I can't help this condition. I was born with it. It doesn't make me a nasty person or a bad person. Accept me or don't. And to me, if people were still negative towards me, then I personally walked away from them. Um, you know, in my work situations, my work scenarios, I mean, I ended up as a physical education teacher for 10, 12 years. And it's very much a case of, you know, I made sure that I'm not sitting talking face to face with people. I have a bit of distance. Um, I was always protecting myself with tons of sprays and perfumes. Um, I haven't haven't really had any too much negative experience sort of in my 30s and 40s, but maybe that's because I don't pay too much attention about people's reactions now. I let it go over my head. It doesn't affect me. But I do talk to people. If I see their faces scrunch up, it's just, oh, this, by the way, I've got a medical condition. It's called TMAU. And I explain a little bit about it, and people soften, people understand. But unless you give people that opportunity to understand, you're just receiving their negativity, and you're just fully taking it on board. But you've got to have the strength and the courage to explain to people. You really have. And if at the end of the day, if you don't explain, they can't understand.
Hopefully in the future, a medical institution or something will market like TMAU awareness shirts or something like that. It'd make it a tad easier, wouldn't it?
It would. I mean, it'd be wonderful if they could actually pop it onto the curriculum in the education system. When kids are doing biology at a fairly young age, different types of medical conditions, and body odor conditions could be raised, because people don't think they exist. They don't know they exist. So, and as young children, kids tend to accept things a lot more than adults. And so if they've grown up knowing, even if it's like literally they've heard it for 5 minutes in one class, they're aware, they understand, they know that there's the types of medical conditions exist. I mean, even if they put it onto, I don't know, I was watching New Amsterdam, the series, fairly recently, and obviously they highlight different things throughout different episodes. And wouldn't it be amazing if one of these Hollywood shows would put TMAU into one of their medical programs just once, because it highlights it.
Yeah, I agree with you. Have it be like one of the main characters or something.
Yeah,
Yeah, I think that'd be great.
yeah. Or
Uh,
if it comes in with a medical condition, they can diagnose it. And I don't know, it just highlights it, because how many people watch soaps? Hundreds of thousands of people do, and it just gives them that little bit of knowledge just for 5 minutes.
I agree. Uh, so I'm gonna ask you uh another question real quick. Um, so if any medical professionals out there were to listen to this,
Hmm.
what message would you like to give them? Ba- Basically, it could be about your life. It could be about furthering this spread of awareness for TMAU and malodorous conditions. Uh, in your words, Joanne, what would you tell them?
People are suffering. People are suffering for a variety of reasons. Obviously, the odor is the biggest problem for everybody, but it's people's mental attitudes to how they cope with that. And if you are not close to finding a cure, then please look at the wider aspect of supporting everybody with TMAU and body odor syndromes, so that they have support and they have understanding, and there is much more awareness out there for people to learn how to cope with it. And for non-people who do not know about this awareness, they become more educated and empathetic, so that everybody can get on and work towards being happy, having a happy and healthy life, until such things can be resolved, if they ever are. But in the meantime, we just need, I don't know, everybody needs support, and people need to be given the strength mentally to stand up and say, this is who I am, and I'm going to live my life regardless, and I'm going to be happy.
Hey, I feel like that's a great message. Uh, well, thank you, Joanne. Thank you for your time. I really loved having you on the show. Before we wrap things up, is there anything else you would like to share? Like any stories, anything that you feel could help anybody out there?
um I don't know. I mean, every day is a challenge, really, isn't it? And but you can't change the past, but you can change the future. So it's very much a case of treat every day as a stepping stone towards you getting on with life, choosing what you want to do with your life and making it happen. And don't let anybody step in your way, especially if they have ignorance about our condition. Stand up tall, smile, and go get your lives.
That's a beautiful message. Well, guys, thank you for listening, for tuning in for episode 9 of Harsh. Joanne, thank you for being a guest. I hope you have a good rest of your day.
Thank you very much, Chris. Bye bye.
Bye.